The crystalline meditation chamber pulsed with a soft edge or glow as Khazar floated in its center, all four eyes closed in perfect concentration. 3 centuries of successful contracts had earned them this luxury. A private sanctuary aboard their stealth vessel, currently drifting in the peaceful void between the Proxima Centauri and Sol systems. The chamber's harmonic resonance shattered as an urgent priority message cut through their ship's communications filter. Khazar's upper eyes snapped open, their violet irises contracting with annoyance. In 300 years, only 6 entities had access to override their meditation protocols. "Display," Khazar commanded, their voice a whisper that carried the weight of countless successful eliminations. The message materialized in the air before them, its encryption signature belonging to the Preservation Council, the conservative faction within the Galactic Confederation dedicated to maintaining the natural order of space. The contract details scrolled through the air in gleaming galactic standard. Target: Dr. Emma Mitchell, species, human, Terra. Position: appointed ambassador to the Galactic Confederation timeline. Before the ratification vote, 14 standard days. Payment: 500,000 credits, triple standard rate. Khazar's lower eyes opened slowly, focusing on the payment amount. Triple rate suggested desperation, fear, or both. Their facial tentacles curled with interest as they accessed the attached dossier. The image that appeared showed a human female in her 4th decade. Brown hair streaked with gray, laugh lines around her eyes, and what humans called a business suit, their formal protective covering. She looked utterly unremarkable, which in Khazar's experience often meant the opposite. Computer, expand target background. Khazar commanded, settling into their research phase. The meditation chamber's walls shifted from azure to cream, transforming into a wraparound display of information. Dr. Emma Mitchell, former professor of xenolinguistics at Stanford University, married with 2 offspring. Primary architect of the Human Confederation Translation Matrix, selected as Earth's first ambassador after successfully mediating a trade dispute between the Confederation and the Silicon Collective. Khazar's tentacles rippled with mild amusement. The Preservation Council's motivation became clear. Humans were advancing too quickly. In just 50 years since first contact, they had gone from primitive planetary civilization to potential Confederation membership. Conservative elements would naturally see this as a threat to stability. Computer, display clients stated justification for contract. The text shimmer shifted before them. The human species represents an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. Their admission to the Confederation must be prevented. Ambassador Mitchell's elimination will delay the process by minimum 6 standard months, allowing for proper assessment of human civilization's readiness. Khazar began their standard pre-mission checklist, centuries of experience flowing through practiced neural pathways. Computer, analyze target species' defensive capabilities, standard assassination vectors. The computer hummed, collating data. Khazar expected the usual parameters: atmospheric requirements, physical vulnerabilities, standard security protocols. Every species had weaknesses. In 3 centuries, they had never failed to find them. A warning chime interrupted their thoughts. Khazar's tentacles stiffened in surprise. "Warning," the computer announced. "Initial analysis has detected significant anomalies in human defensive patterns. Standard assassination protocols may require substantial modification." Khazar's upper eyes narrowed. "Explain." Human security measures appear recreational in nature, unable to distinguish between civilian defense training and military protocols. Additional data required for accurate threat assessment. Interesting. Khazar's tentacles curled thoughtfully. In 3 centuries, they had never received such a warning during initial analysis. Begin deep research protocol. Full species combat capability assessment. As the computer began its search, Khazar settled back into their meditation pose. 500,000 credits suggested this contract would be challenging, but challenges were why they had become the galaxy's premier assassin. How dangerous could one human ambassador really be? In the chamber's renewed azure glow, Khazar allowed themselves a moment of professional satisfaction. In 14 days, Dr. Emma Mitchell would be eliminated, Earth's Confederation membership would be delayed, and another perfect contract would be completed. The galaxy, as it had for 3 centuries, would continue to whisper Khazar's name with fear and respect. They had no way of knowing that this routine contract would shatter every assumption they had about combat, civilization, and the peculiar species called humanity. Khazar's meditation chamber had transformed into a kaleidoscope of violence. Holographic displays surrounded them, each showing different aspects of human combat training. Their upper eyes tracked a sequence labeled Mixed Martial Arts Championship, while their lower eyes scanned historical military documents. Their facial tentacles had been still for over 3 hours, a sign of deep disturbance in their species. "Computer, confirm analysis," Khazar whispered, their voice uncharacteristically tense. "Humans intentionally practice combat techniques, without payment." "Confirmed," the computer responded. "Analysis indicates 63% of human populations voluntarily engage in combat training activities, classified as sports or recreation." Khazar's tentacles finally moved, curling inward with anxiety. The display shifted to footage from something called a boxing gym. Humans of various ages were repeatedly striking padded surfaces and each other, many of them smiling. Some were even exchanging currency for the privilege. "Isolate targets' combat capabilities," Khazar commanded, trying to focus on their mission parameters. The computer displayed Dr. Emma Mitchell's public fitness records. Khazar's upper eyes widened as they read. Target participates in 3 combat-adjacent activities: kickboxing, 6 years, yoga, 12 years, and CrossFit, 3 years. "Define yoga," Khazar demanded. "Ancient human discipline focusing on physical flexibility, balance, and mental control. Originally developed by warrior priests. Modern applications include stress relief and combat preparation." Khazar's tentacles writhed. Even human relaxation techniques had military origins. The displays shifted again, showing Dr. Mitchell performing something called the warrior pose in form-fitting exercise garments. "Computer, expand search parameters. Show me human combat training variations." The chamber erupted with new displays. Children barely old enough to walk practicing karate, elderly humans executing precise Tai Chi movements, office workers learning Krav Maga after their daily labors. Each revelation was more disturbing than the last. "Statistical analysis," Khazar ordered, their professional composure cracking. "Compare human combat training to other Confederation species." The computer's response was immediate and troubling. No equivalent comparison available. No other known species engages in voluntary combat training as recreation. Closest behavioral match: predator species maintaining hunting instincts in captivity. Khazar floated in silence, their 4 eyes moving from display to display. In one, humans practiced capoeira, disguising lethal movements as dance. In another, they engaged in parkour, transforming any urban environment into a potential combat zone. A third showed wrestling, where humans competed to demonstrate physical dominance while following arbitrary rules they had invented to make it more challenging. Computer, display standard assassination vectors for target species. Unable to comply, the computer responded. Human combat training creates statistical anomaly. Cannot predict combat capability of any individual human due to voluntary training variables. Khazar's tentacles coiled tightly against their face, a gesture of profound professional concern. "Explain." Example: target Dr. Emma Mitchell's kickboxing training. Records indicate participation in beginner class. However, human combat sports allow indefinite skill advancement. Without current assessment, target's true combat capability remains unknown. The displays shifted again, showing humans practicing combat in water, on mountains, in temperature extremes. Each new image revealed another aspect of humanity's obsession with fighting principles. Computer, final analysis. What percentage of human population can be classified as combat trained? The answer appeared in glowing red text. Error. Question cannot be computed. All humans appear to receive combat training through direct martial instruction, combat sports viewing, theoretical combat simulation entertainment, action movies, or voluntary combat preparation. Self-defense classes. No baseline non-combat human population found for comparison. Khazar's tentacles went completely limp, the equivalent of a stunned jaw drop in their species. In 3 centuries of assassination work, they had never encountered a species that had effectively militarized their entire population through recreational activities. The computer's final analysis hovered before them. Warning: standard assassination protocols may be ineffective. Humans appear to have achieved species-wide combat readiness through voluntary training systems. Recommend deep cultural analysis before proceeding with contract. For the first time in their long career, Khazar felt something approaching fear. They needed to understand more about this species that treated combat as entertainment, turned spaces into weapons, and spent their leisure time preparing for battle. They had 13 days left to eliminate Dr. Emma Mitchell, and they had just discovered their target belonged to a species of recreational warriors. The human beverage known as coffee steamed in front of Khazar as they sat in the busy cafe, their holographic disguise projecting the appearance of a graduate student from New Singapore. Their upper eyes tracked Dr. Mitchell through the window, while their lower eyes studied the other patrons. After 3 days of direct observation, every new detail about humans increased their professional anxiety. More coffee, Han. The server, a female human in her 50s, smiled warmly. Yes, please, Khazar replied, their translator perfectly mimicking an Earth accent. As she poured, Khazar noticed the subtle muscle definition in her forearms. Their implants quickly identify the cause. Tuesday night ladies' boxing class. Golden Gloves gym. Even the coffee servers were combat trained. Outside, Dr. Mitchell finished her morning jog, a voluntary high-endurance exercise the humans performed despite having perfectly functional transport devices. Khazar's surveillance had revealed that she ran 5.2 kilometers every morning, maintaining speeds that would exhaust many professional hunters on other worlds. The assassin's facial tentacles twitched beneath their holographic mask as they accessed their morning notes. 5:30. Target begins day with sun salutations, yoga combat readiness routine. 600. Target performs high-intensity interval training. Battlefield stamina preparation. 700. Target runs urban evasion course. Jogging route. 800. Target acquires chemical stimulant. Morning coffee. Khazar watched Dr. Mitchell enter the cafe, her face slightly flushed from exercise, but showing no signs of fatigue. She ordered her usual drink, then performed a series of subtle stretches while waiting, movements that Khazar's combat analysis identified as maintaining muscle readiness. Their thoughts were interrupted by a commotion from the cafe's exterior workout space. A group of humans were arranging themselves in rows, preparing for something called morning meditation and movement. Khazar's translator picked up their conversation. New defense sequence today, everyone. Remember, flow like water, strike like lightning. The assassin's tentacles coiled tightly. Even their meditation was combat-oriented. Dr. Mitchell collected her drink and took a seat near the window, removing a data tablet from her bag. Khazar's enhanced vision caught glimpses of her screen. Diplomatic briefings interspersed with something called Weekend Warrior workout plans. Khazar's comm implant buzzed softly. Their facial recognition software had identified another potential threat. Dr. Mitchell's teenage offspring had entered the cafe's opposite entrance. The girl moved with the unconscious grace of a trained predator, her muscles displaying the telltale signs of what humans called gymnastics, a childhood activity combining flexibility training, strength conditioning, and aerial maneuver practice. "Mom," the girl called out, dropping her parkour club bag beside the table. "Coach says I can start teaching the beginner class." Dr. Mitchell looked up from her tablet, beaming with pride. "That's wonderful, Sophie. Your father will be thrilled. He's been working on that new obstacle course in the backyard just for you." Khazar's upper eyes widened. They had observed the obstacle course construction from orbit. What they had assumed was routine property maintenance was actually a combat training facility. Their tentacles rippled with disbelief as they added another note to their surveillance log. Wo-Ning. Humans construct practice warfare zones around their living spaces for family activities. The cafe's morning crowd grew, and Khazar's threat detection implants began to overload. Their enhanced senses revealed a young male practicing martial arts forms while waiting for his drink, an elderly couple discussing their self-defense class schedule, 3 children comparing karate belt achievements, a pregnant female reviewing prenatal combat yoga techniques. Khazar's coffee grew cold as they sat motionless, their 4 eyes constantly scanning and their combat analysis software struggling to process the sheer density of potential threats. In their 3 centuries of assassination work, they had infiltrated military bases with fewer trained combatants than this civilian gathering space. The morning sun climbed higher as Dr. Mitchell and her daughter discussed the girls' parkour techniques, sketching movement patterns on a napkin. Khazar watched in growing horror as a simple breakfast meeting transformed into an impromptu combat strategy session. They had 12 days left to eliminate their target, but a new question was forming in their minds. In a species that treated combat training as a form of family bonding, could anyone truly be classified as a soft target? The Pleasant Grove Public Library maintained a peaceful atmosphere that afternoon, broken only by the gentle tapping of keyboards and occasional whispers. Khazar, still maintaining their graduate student disguise, observed Dr. Mitchell from behind a historical warfare treatise. Their target sat 3 tables away, surrounded by diplomatic documents and cultural exchange proposals. Khazar's threat assessment routines had finally begun adapting to the constant presence of combat-trained humans. Their system now classified the elderly librarian as a yellow alert threat due to her Tai Chi master status, rather than triggering a full red alert response. Progress, of sorts. The relative calm shattered as 3 masked figures burst through the library's main entrance. Khazar's combat systems instantly identified primitive projectile weapons in their hands. Their translator picked up the leader's words. "Everyone stay calm. This is a robbery." Khazar's tentacles coiled with professional interest beneath their holographic disguise. Finally, an opportunity to observe how their target handled actual combat situations. They activated their high-speed recording capabilities, expecting Dr. Mitchell to seek cover or attempt escape. Instead, she calmly closed her laptop. The first masked human approached the reference desk, weapon raised. "Open the safe. Now." Before he finished speaking, 4 things happened simultaneously. Dr. Mitchell's hand casually gripped her steel water bottle. The librarian shifted her stance into what Khazar recognized as a defensive position. A young human male reading a computer manual dropped into a crouch. A middle-aged female elementary school teacher moved to protect a group of children. Khazar's combat analysis software began flooding their neural interface with warnings. The humans weren't panicking. They were coordinating. The second robber moved toward Dr. Mitchell's table. "You. Hand over the laptop." Khazar's enhanced vision captured every detail of what happened next. Dr. Mitchell's water bottle transformed into an improvised projectile, striking the second robber's hand with precision. The weapon clattered away as the librarian executed a perfect sweep kick, sending the first robber sprawling. The computer enthusiast launched himself over a table, closing distance with practiced efficiency. The third robber managed to fire a single shot into the ceiling before the school teacher disabled him using a heavy textbook and what Khazar's system identified as basic joint lock techniques. Total time elapsed, 8.3 seconds. Khazar's tentacles went completely rigid as their combat analysis attempted to process what they had witnessed. 4 civilians from different age groups and professional backgrounds had neutralized an armed threat using improvised weapons and coordinated tactics. without communication, without preparation, without apparent military training. The library's security system activated, sealing the doors. Dr. Mitchell helped the librarian secure the subdued attackers using computer cables and her own belt. The teacher had already organized the children into a calm group, leading them in breathing exercises. The young male began collecting weapons using proper safety protocols. "Everyone okay?" Dr. Mitchell asked, her voice steady. "Mrs. Henderson, excellent form on that sweep. Those morning Tai Chi sessions really paid off." The librarian smiled, adjusting her glasses. "Thank you, dear. And Kevin, that was wonderful timing with the takedown. Your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor will be proud." The computer enthusiast, Kevin, grinned. "Thanks. Though Ms. Patterson's textbook strike was the real MVP. Where do you learn that move?" The teacher shrugged, still calming the children. "YouTube self-defense videos, honestly. I practice with my class's science textbooks during prep periods." Khazar's holographic disguise flickered slightly as their systems struggled to maintain composure. Their target hadn't just survived an attack. She had coordinated an impromptu civilian defense force using nothing but a water bottle and what humans apparently considered basic skills. As local law enforcement arrived, Khazar watched Dr. Mitchell help collect witness statements, her diplomatic training seamlessly blending with her combat effectiveness. The assassin's neural interface pinged with an urgent update to their mission assessment. Woe-ar-ning. Target species demonstrates unprecedented civilian combat integration. Individuals coordinate instinctively in crisis situations. Previous threat assessment protocols inadequate. Khazar had 11 days left to eliminate Dr. Mitchell, but their professional confidence was crumbling. How do you assassinate a target whose entire species treats combat readiness as a basic life skill? Their tentacles curled with growing dread as they realized. This was just a library. They still hadn't seen how humans behaved in actually dangerous situations. Khazar sat motionless in their cloaked ship's observation pod, all four eyes fixed on the massive screen before them. After the library incident, they had retreated to orbit for emergency research into human combat psychology. The results had led them down a terrifying rabbit hole of human entertainment. "Computer, continue playback of human combat simulation series," they commanded, their tentacles twisted into stress knots. The screen displayed something humans called Die Hard, a movie that Khazar had originally assumed was a tactical training simulation. Their research had revealed a more disturbing truth. Humans watched these for pleasure. "Pause playback," Khazar ordered. Analysis of combat techniques displayed. The computer's response scrolled across their neural interface. Subject demonstrates 47 unique combat solutions including improvised weapons creation, tactical use of environmental hazards, psychological warfare, and advanced battlefield mobility. Note: this entertainment product has been viewed by approximately 42% of human population. Khazar's tentacles writhed. "You mean billions of humans have mentally rehearsed these combat scenarios?" "Affirmative." Cross-referencing with Dr. Mitchell's public entertainment profile, Target has viewed this simulation 12 times, marked as holiday favorite. The assassin's upper eyes closed in despair as the computer continued. Additional analysis indicates average human views 246 hours of combat-focused entertainment annually. Each viewing represents theoretical combat scenario training. Khazar floated to their tactical display, where dozens of human entertainment titles glowed. John Wick, Advanced Weapons Techniques. MacGyver, Improvised Technology Warfare. Mission, Impossible. Infiltration Tactics, The Bourne Identity. Adaptive Combat Strategies. Computer, display target's recent entertainment consumption. The screen filled with Dr. Mitchell's viewing history. Atomic Blonde, viewed during morning exercises. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Family Movie Night. The Raid, Weekend Relaxation. Leverage, tagged as Professional Development. Each title came with the computer's concerning analysis. Combat techniques demonstrated considered theoretical but adaptable to real-world scenarios. Expand search to include human video game simulations. Khazar commanded, their professional detachment cracking. The data stream became a flood. Millions of humans spent billions of hours in complex combat simulations, practicing everything from medieval sword fighting to futuristic space warfare. They didn't just watch combat scenarios. They actively participated in them. Computer, calculate total combat simulation hours for average human lifetime. The answer appeared, error, variable too large. Average human exposure to combat scenarios through entertainment exceeds standard tactical training programs of all known military species combined. Khazar's tentacles went limp as they accessed Dr. Mitchell's family entertainment logs. Their target didn't just watch combat simulations. She played fighting games with her daughter, practiced combat sport games with her spouse, and participated in something called Family Self-Defense Movie Night. Computer, display most popular human entertainment categories by volume. The results shimmered before them. 1. Action. Combat scenarios. 2. Adventure. Survival tactics. 3. Science fiction. Theoretical future combat. 4. Fantasy. Alternative combat methods. 5. Mystery. Strategic problem solving. Khazar's professional pride suffered another blow as they realized humans had transformed combat training into their primary form of entertainment. Every time they thought they were relaxing, they were actually rehearsing battle scenarios. Computer, final analysis. Can standard assassination protocols be effective against a species that considers combat simulation a leisure activity? The response was immediate. Negative. Human entertainment demonstrates infinite combat possibilities, creative problem solving, adaptation to all scenarios, and constant tactical innovation. Target has likely mentally rehearsed and resolved hundreds of theoretical assassination attempts through entertainment alone. Khazar stared at their tactical display, where Dr. Mitchell's evening schedule mocked them. Family movie night. Selection. Jason Bourne marathon. Note. Sophie wants to practice those disarm techniques again. They had 10 days left to eliminate their target, but a new understanding was forming. Humans didn't need formal combat training because they had transformed warfare simulation into their primary form of entertainment. Every human child grew up practicing combat scenarios as games. Every human adult spent their leisure time imagining new ways to fight. How do you assassinate someone from a species that spends their relaxation time thinking about all the ways they might have to fight for their life? Khazar floated in their meditation chamber, all 4 eyes closed, facial tentacles completely still. The chamber's usual azure glow had been replaced by a deep purple, the color of professional crisis in their species' chromatic emotional spectrum. Around them, hundreds of holographic displays showed their past 9 days of research. Combat training facilities disguised as health clubs, weapon mastery programs labeled as sports, battlefield mobility exercises called Parker, strategic combat simulations marketed as entertainment, children's combat initiation rituals known as Karite birthday parties. Computer, Khazar whispered, their voice heavy with resignation, begin recording formal contract rejection. The chamber's light shifted to crimson, the traditional color for breaking a professional oath. In 3 centuries, Khazar had never rejected a contract. Their tentacles coiled tightly as they began. To the Honorable Preservation Council of the Galactic Confederation, I, Khazar, Master Assassin of the 7th Order, hereby submit my formal rejection of contract number GC-7729 regarding the elimination of Human Ambassador Dr. Emma Mitchell. My rejection is based on the following unprecedented factors. 1. Target species combat integration. Analysis reveals humans have achieved something no other species has attempted: the complete integration of combat readiness into civilian life. They have transformed warfare preparation into recreation, combat training into entertainment, and tactical thinking into a leisure activity. 2. Unpredictable capability range. Standard threat assessment protocols are ineffective because humans deliberately handicap their training to increase difficulty. Example: target practices blindfolded yoga to improve spatial awareness. Her offspring participates in underwater basket weaving, which apparently improves combat breathing techniques. 3. Environmental adaptation. Humans treat every space as a potential combat zone. During surveillance, I observed target's mate converting their dwelling's basement into something called a home gym, essentially a private combat training facility. Their offspring's playground contains equipment that would qualify as military-grade obstacle courses on 17 Confederation worlds. 4. Cultural combat integration. Most disturbing is the human tendency to combine combat training with social bonding. Target's family engages in weekly self-defense movie night, where they watch combat simulations and practice techniques as a recreational activity. This behavior appears standard across human culture. 5. Civilian combat readiness. The library incident, see attached footage, demonstrated that average humans can coordinate complex tactical responses without prior planning. Target neutralized an armed threat using a water container, while a document specialist provided combat support with primitive bound paper weapons. Books. 6. Innovation risk factor. Humans approach combat with unnecessary creativity. Target was observed teaching diplomatic staff something called office chair self-defense during lunch break. They have weaponized furniture. I repeat, they have weaponized furniture. Based on these factors, I must conclude that the human species represents a unique case where standard assassination protocols are insufficient. Their combination of constant combat preparation, creative tactical thinking, and the ability to weaponize any object makes them effectively impossible to eliminate using conventional methods. Furthermore, I submit that classifying any human as a soft target represents a dangerous underestimation of their capabilities. Their entire species has effectively militarized itself through recreational activities, while somehow convincing themselves this is normal behavior. My professional recommendation is to 1. Immediately classify all humans as potential combat specialists. 2. Reassess the wisdom of denying them Confederation membership. 3. Consider the strategic advantages of having such a species as allies rather than potential adversaries. In conclusion, I formally withdraw from this contract and forfeit all payment. I also strongly advise against attempting to eliminate Dr. Mitchell through other means, as my research suggests she would likely survive the attempt and possibly incorporate the experience into her family's next action movie night. With professional regret. Khazar, Master Assassin, specializing in impossible targets. The chamber fell silent as Khazar completed their recording. 3 centuries of perfect contracts, ended by a species that treated combat as a hobby. Their tentacles relaxed slightly as they accessed the human concept of irony. Perhaps it was fitting that their perfect record would be broken by the most imperfect species they had ever encountered. Computer, transmit rejection notice to Preservation Council. They had just committed professional suicide, but as they watched Dr. Mitchell teaching her daughter improvised weapon theory using kitchen utensils, Khazar knew they had made the only logical choice. Some targets weren't just difficult, they were impossible, especially when they spent their free time practicing how to make them impossible. Khazar watched the encrypted transmission from their stealth ship's observation pod, their 4 eyes fixed on the Preservation Council's emergency session. Their tentacles curled with grim satisfaction as the council members raged about their contract rejection. Unacceptable. Council Elder Angstith thundered, their crystalline form pulsing with anger. 3 centuries of service, and Khazar refuses over a simple human target. The report must be exaggerated. Second Elder Villain clicked through mandibles. Humans cannot be this universally combat capable. We have already secured an alternative solution. Third Elder Marak hummed. The assassin Narration has accepted the contract. They specialize in direct approaches. Khazar's tentacles writhed in professional disappointment. Urich was known for brute force tactics, the kind of assassin who had never learned that subtlety was an art. The sort who thought overwhelming power was always the answer. The perfect test subject for human combat adaptability. Computer, activate planetary surveillance. Track Urich's approach. The displays lit up with multiple angles as Urich's combat pod entered Earth's atmosphere. Khazar had to admit their fellow assassin's timing was excellent. Dr. Mitchell was on her morning run, relatively isolated on her usual route through Memorial Park. Khazar's tentacles coiled with anticipation. They had warned the Council. Now they would document the inevitable result. Urich's initial approach was textbook aggressive elimination. Their combat pod deployed scanning countermeasures, prepared neural disruptors, and positioned itself for a perfect ambush along the running path. By any conventional tactical assessment, Dr. Mitchell was completely vulnerable, which was why Khazar wasn't surprised when everything went wrong. The first sign of trouble came when Dr. Mitchell adjusted her running path without breaking stride, almost casually avoiding Urich's carefully planned ambush position. Khazar's combat analysis software highlighted the reason. She was using her phone's fitness app, which had recommended a random route variation for optimal training. Urich, unused to targets that changed patterns for exercise purposes, was forced to reposition. Tactical analysis. Khazar commanded, watching with professional interest. Target is maintaining awareness through reflected surfaces, including phone screen, fitness watch, and decorative park structures. Cardiovascular activity suggests no elevation in stress levels. Assessment. Target is practicing situational awareness as part of regular exercise routine. Urich, growing frustrated, activated their neural disruptor. The weapon was designed to incapacitate any organic being's nervous system within a 50-meter radius. Dr. Mitchell stumbled slightly, then adjusted her wireless earbuds. Weird static, she muttered, switching to her backup pair. The neural disruption, meant for standard organic nervous systems, had been interpreted as simple electronic interference. Khazar's tentacles rippled with amusement. Urich had failed to account for human technology accidentally providing countermeasures. The frustrated assassin finally emerged from concealment, activating their paralysis field, a last resort weapon that should have frozen Dr. Mitchell in place. Instead, she smoothly transitioned into what Khazar's system identified as a yoga balance pose, unconsciously adjusting to the field's effects through practiced muscle control. Janet, she called out to another runner. The gravity feels amazing right here, perfect for resistance training. 3 other runners immediately joined her, turning the paralysis field into an impromptu exercise zone. Urich, professional composure completely shattered, charged directly at the target. Khazar's combat analysis software documented the next 2.3 seconds in precise detail. Dr. Mitchell pivoted using a dance revolution technique. Her fitness watch detected unusual acceleration and activated its emergency features. The backup earbuds transmitted her location to park security. She disabled Urich using her water bottle, running shoes, and what appeared to be self-defense techniques against larger opponents. YouTube tutorial version. By the time park security arrived, Dr. Mitchell had restrained the alien assassin using her running jacket and shoelaces, while leading the other runners in a cool-down stretch routine. Computer, update professional assessment of human combat capabilities. Khazar commanded, their tentacles relaxed with vindication. Assessment. Humans have achieved perfect combat integration. They have transformed exercise into tactical training, recreational technology into defense systems, and group workout routines into combat support networks. Previous conclusion stands. Attempting to eliminate humans using standard methods is tactically unsound. Khazar watched Dr. Mitchell give a statement to local law enforcement, somehow transforming an assassination attempt into a community exercise event. Their warning to the council had been proven correct in the most emphatic way possible. Now they just had to wait for the real chaos to begin, because if there was one thing their research had shown, It was this: humans loved turning combat stories into entertainment. The Galactic Confederation's Grand Assembly Hall hummed with nervous energy as Khazar delivered their presentation. Their holographic form floated above the central podium, all four eyes scanning the assembled representatives, while their tentacles moved with precise professional emphasis. In conclusion, they addressed the stunned audience. Humanity represents an unprecedented development in combat evolution. They have achieved something no other species considered possible: the complete integration of combat readiness into civilian life through recreational activities. The display behind them showed footage from Dr. Mitchell's encounter with Urith, now a viral sensation across human social media platforms. Humans had somehow transformed an assassination attempt into a trending workout routine called the Alien Defense Challenge. Observe. Khazar continued, highlighting specific moments. The target neutralizes a Class 7 assassin using improvised weapons developed through sports training, tactical movements learned from dance games, and combat techniques acquired from online tutorials. Most concerning, she then teaches these methods to others through something called social media reels. The assembled delegates shifted uncomfortably as the display showed humans across Earth recreating Dr. Mitchell's defensive techniques, each adding their own variations. Khazar's combat analysis software had identified 37 distinct improvements to the original method in the first week alone. This adaptability, Khazar emphasized, their tentacles forming patterns of urgent warning, extends to all aspects of human society. They have developed thousands of combat styles by asking the simple question: what if we fought like this? The display shifted to show various human combat sports. Underwater wrestling, because fighting on land wasn't challenging enough. Blindfolded martial arts, to make it interesting. Zero-gravity combat simulation, for fun. Most critically, Khazar continued, humans treat combat mastery as a hobby. They deliberately seek out new challenges, create more difficult training conditions, and share combat knowledge through entertainment channels. They have gamified warfare. The Preservation Council members watched in horror as the display showed Dr. Mitchell's latest initiative, a diplomatic cultural exchange program centered around interstellar self-defense workshops. The attempted assassination, Khazar noted, their tentacles rippling with professional amusement, has actually accelerated human integration into galactic society. They are now offering to teach their recreational combat techniques to other species. 300 delegates have already enrolled in something called beginner's kickboxing. The assembly erupted in concerned murmurs as the display showed various alien diplomats attempting human exercise routines. The Regelian ambassador had apparently become addicted to something called CrossFit. My professional recommendation, Khazar concluded, is immediate acceptance of humanity into the Confederation, followed by comprehensive study of their combat integration methods. A species that treats warfare as entertainment, turns exercise into combat training, and weaponizes common objects through creativity cannot be effectively opposed. They should be made allies before they realize just how extraordinary their capabilities are. The display showed its final image: Dr. Mitchell leading a diplomatic corps defense class, teaching representatives from 50 species how to repurpose office supplies as defensive tools. Her daughter Sophie demonstrated advanced techniques while completing her quantum physics homework. Questions? Khazar asked, their tentacles forming the pattern for professional satisfaction. A junior delegate raised an appendage. But what if humans teach other species their combat integration methods? Too late, Khazar replied, gesturing to the back of the hall where the Preservation Council members were attempting human stretching exercises while watching an action movie marathon. The vote to accept Earth into the Confederation passed unanimously. The following day, Khazar received an urgent message from the Confederation's Security Council. They were being offered a new position, Special Advisor on Human Combat Integration. Their first task: explaining to various planetary defense forces why humans considered paintball team building exercises to be appropriate diplomatic activities. Khazar's tentacles formed the pattern for resigned acceptance as they watched Dr. Mitchell demonstrate conference room parkour to a group of enthusiastic ambassadors. They had failed their assassination contract, but in doing so, they had discovered something far more valuable. A species that had made combat mastery so enjoyable that the rest of the galaxy wanted to learn their methods. The humans had a phrase for this situation. If you can't beat them, join them. Khazar was beginning to understand why humans had so many sayings about combat. They had turned warfare into an art form, combat into a hobby, and now, somehow, they had made galactic peace through universal combat training. It was, as humans would say, perfectly logical.